All right, we're going to talk about the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is derived from completing the square of the function ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, we're not going to go over how to do that. Potentially, if we were in class, we would do that. You are going to have to memorize the quadratic formula. It's something that everybody should have memorized because we use it so often in solving quadratic equations. Okay, the quadratic formula always works. So if you can get, you can always use the quadratic formula. It's just not sometimes the most efficient way to solve them. Okay, so if I have the equation ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and I want to know the values of x that make that 0, I can plug it into this quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right. If you need to have, there are tons of songs to help you remember these. You can look those up. But negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. This works. Okay. You can solve quadratic equations. If you can't factor, you can always use the quadratic formula. Okay. So here we have our quadratic formula. So we're going to solve this using the quadratic formula. So I'm going to write down my A, B, C. Well, A equals 2, B equals negative 1, and C, well, I guess I probably don't know C yet because I actually have to get it on the same side. So I actually have to rewrite this, and I should have done that first by subtracting 4 to the other side because I want that to be 0. So C is negative 4. So now I'm going to plug it into this formula. X equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 1 squared. So anytime I square b, it's going to be positive. Minus 4 times 2 times negative 4 all over 2 times 2. Okay, so I just wrote it out. I'm going to do a little simplifying here. So now I have 1 plus or minus the square root of 1. So I'm going to multiply this out. So I have two negatives, which makes that a positive. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 4 is 32. All over 4. I simplify 1 plus 32, so I have 1 plus or minus the square root of 33 all over 4. There's my answer. It has two answers, right? 1 plus the square root of 33 over 4 and 1 minus the square root of 33 over 4. Two answers. That's using the quadratic formula. We're going to use one more here. We're going to do it here. I am going to so a lot of times, depending on what it's asking for in the question, sometimes you're going to want to find the decimal of this. If it asks for an approximation or the number rounded out to 2 decimal points, something like that, you're actually going to have to physically find that square root. Okay? So here we have A, B, C. Okay? So A is negative 1, B is negative 48, C is negative 300. So this is a model of a story problem. Okay? And they're trying to find out at what point does this cross back over the axis. So I'm probably going to need a calculator here, right? Because if I look at my formula, I have x equals negative b, so negative 48, plus or minus the square root of negative 48 squared, right? Might not know what negative 48 squared is. That's okay. Minus 4 times negative 1 times negative 300 all over 2 times negative 1. Okay? So I end up with 48 plus or minus, well, this is going to be minus 1200 here. And so then we want to know what 48 squared is. So I'm going to grab a calculator real quick. 48 squared is 2,000, oops, not 3,000, 2,304, all over -2. Okay, so I'm going to subtract that out. 48 plus or minus, here I have 1,104 over -2. Okay, now if it asked me for the decimal equivalent, I would actually find the square root of 1,104. I would add it to 48, divide by -2. I would subtract it from 48 and then divide by -2. Okay, so let's say I want to know the approximation here, so I'd go 48 plus the square root of 1,004 over -2, and I would go 48 minus the square root of 1,004 over -2. So the square root, so this is approximately 33, okay? So I'm going to add that to 48 and then divide it by 2. This gives me -40.61. This one here, I'm going to go 48 minus the square root. And this gives me -7.39. So these are approximations, right? This is our actual answer. These are approximations, okay? The next thing we're going to talk about is called the discriminant, okay? The discriminant is the piece inside the square root, all right? And what the discriminant does is it tells us how many possible solutions we have. Okay, well, why would it indeed be important to know how many solutions we would have? Well, it's nice to know that ahead of time, because what it does is it allows us to know if our answers are right. Okay, so the discriminant is is b squared minus 4ac. Now, if b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, so the inside of this square root is positive, okay, then we know we have two real solutions. So our graph is going to do something like this. It's going to come through that x-axis twice. I don't care if it opens up or opens down. It's going to come through that graph twice. That's important to know, okay? I may not know those points, but I know I have two real solutions, okay? If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, I have one real solution. And what happens is my graph is going to come up and touch the x-axis at the vertex, okay? So it's only going to intersect the x-axis once. I don't care if it opens up or down. It's only going to touch it once if the inside of my quadratic formula, so the square root, b squared minus 4ac equals 0, okay? Because adding 0 or subtracting 0 is the same thing, okay? Now, this is the one that really is important to understanding, and we're going to talk about this later. What happens if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0? Well, we actually have 0 real solutions, and what we end up having is 2 complex solutions or 2 imaginary solutions. So this is the situation in which our graph is not going to go through the x-axis. So we're either above the x-axis or we're below. So if we open up, we're above the x-axis. If we open down, we're going to be below. So this gives us complex solutions. That's important to know because we're going to talk about complex numbers next time, and having that imaginary piece of it, that I, okay? So we're going to use the discriminant. We're going to find out what is the number of solutions of -2x squared minus 3x plus 5. So you still need to have A, B, C, okay? I still want to write those down. I might, so A is -2, B is -3, C is 5. Now I'm going to go B squared minus 4AC, okay? So I'm going to plug in my B. Here I get -3 squared minus 4 times -2 times 5. And what I'm really looking at here, this is 9. I have negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. Positive 8 times 5 is positive 40. So this is 49. Okay? How many solutions do I have now? It's a positive number, so it's a number greater than 0. So I have 2 real solutions. 2 real solutions. Now the nice thing is once I find the discriminant and I know how many solutions I have, I can just plug this in. I now know that it's, negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 49 all over 2 times negative 2. I know the square root of 49. So this gives me 3 plus or minus 7 over negative 4. So now I have 3 plus 7 over negative 4. And 3 minus 7 over negative 4. So this gives me 10 over negative 4, which is negative 5 halves. This gives me negative 4 over negative 4, which is 1. So my solutions are negative 5 halves and 1. So I'm still going to use the discriminant in my formula. Okay, but it's important to understand that the discriminant is telling us how many solutions we have and what type of solutions they are. Okay, so reminder, you have to get this quadratic formula memorized. Okay, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Memorize it and you can always use it.